dead. Definitely need to build up to that again as we go into our first draft of the day.
And it'll be an interesting one, because again, there were a few of us, myself included, that had hopes for ThunderTalk coming into the year in general, and they were a little bit underwhelming. And then WE looked so good in spring, and both teams now in a bit of an interesting spot. 2-0 for WE, 2-1 for TT. We know what the magic number is to get out of the group. Some of the bands now coming on in here, direct rivals going up against each other in terms of wanting to get out of this Nirvana group and join the rest of the crew in Ascension in playoffs. Zyra first pick for WE.
Lucian left up on the table, so it wouldn't surprise me to see maybe Lucian Ezreal or Lucian Kai'Sa locked in right now. Would that be a comfort pick for UCAL? And that would basically allow TT to play towards their comfort style of reposition AD carries, which can really start to take over the mid to late game fights.
Yeah, and we saw even just yesterday, right, that if you do get to a mid-late game stage where your AD carries have self-peel tools, particularly if they're in multiple roles at once, locking them both down to win a fight can be kind of tricky. The response here, there was a very rapid lock-in of the Sejuani. They'll hold on to something like an Ezreal. Sejuani in general getting increasingly high priority here in the LPL.
Yes, but you could have locked this on 3. Like, now you're giving up the Ezreal.
Yeah.
Okay, you're kind of... They wanted to, I guess, hold their cards a little bit longer. Fofo locks in arguably a self-counter pick in the Corki versus the Lucian. We have seen Corki's doing better versus the Lucian recently, but I still think that the Lucian wins the early game. I feel like it's just in the mid to late game fights, the Corki ends up just having an easier time than Lucian in some compositions, especially when the Lucian is outranged by something like the Zyra. They can struggle a fair bit, whereas the Corki doesn't really have that kind of issue with the rocket stuff. The Ezreal was the notable missing pick from this draft so far, and that is going to get locked in. Does open up a Kai'Sa here on 3 for 1xN, though. I think that would work quite well, especially with now 3 carries to jump in, 3 squishies rather to jump in and assassinate. That would be what I would want to see locked in.
1xN is one of those players who does have a couple of those counter pick options in the AD carry. Has played Nymaera before, not necessarily LPL level, but certainly knows how to pilot it. They decide instead against doing that. They are going to hold it till later in the draft, perhaps to see whether there's an angle for something a bit more interesting down there. So they're locking in the Kennen that a lot of top laners here have been looking towards. It is Hoya though, and he's not always been the most stable of laners, shall we say.
The Kennen is a lane dominant pick. I don't know though. Wayward is one of the people who has a top lane counter pick. He was the guy that he was one of the first people to bring out the Mordekaiser alongside 369 in the Skarner meta. Now the Skarner's kind of gone. We don't see that as much. But WE have taken out that Kai'Sa. That could have been locked in on 3. I think that's what I would have gone towards for TT to unlock 1xN more. But we did say in the run up to this game there is a chance that Wayward just kind of stomps down on a Hoya. Wayward is very good at punching down as a top laner. He struggles versus kind of like the top tier top laners, but when he gets a lead in that lane, he does become a game-winning factor himself. So maybe locking in that cannon and banning away some stuff which can threaten Hoya in the top lane could value them.
Alistair coming out afterwards as well, kind of ban away some of those key engage options from Mark. I wonder whether we see something like the Rel here on 4 then for Feather, which he does so love. You make it a little bit more awkward here for Mark, but then again, you've got the Nautilus too, so I think either way, you're trading whatever side of that matchup you feel like.
Yes, it does feel like 4th pick support could be quite good. For Feather, you cannot... I don't know, man. You've just lost all of your reposition AD carries here from 1xN. There's no Ezreal, there's no Kai'Sa, there's no Zeri. Yeah, you can go towards something like the Aphelios. Abel pulled a great game out of this yesterday, but I feel like 1xN is now going to have his fangs a little bit pulled out, which is really important because TT have relied on this guy so much. Giving up that the AD carries for the Kennen... I mean, Hoya, buddy, you've been giving a lot of resources in this draft. Like, a lot of resources. You are going to have to pay 1xN back because he is so often the main carry for this team.
It can be. Mark's Rakan is a thing of beauty. There's a lot of very good Rakan players around the world, but wouldn't be surprised if that does eventually get locked in. When you see what the counter pick is here into the Kennen as well. You've said the Wayward often has 1 or 2 of those more interesting ones up and available. Don't know whether Twisted Fate necessarily counts in that.
We have seen this from, oh god, do I remember? It might have been NIP. We see this because what it allows you to do is take double exhaust. Right. Twisted Fate takes it in top lane, and whatever support you lock in bot lane also takes the exhaust. And it means that if you're jumping in, even someone's like the Lucian at that point, but particularly that Kennen, you never get a clean team fight. You are there for lane dominance, and your team fights become that much more difficult. So WE, whatever they lock in for Mark, which I don't know whether he'll go towards something like the Rakan. I mean, the Rakan is completely fine. That's going to be double exhaust now, which does have value.
Okay, they hold on for a second and instead decide Ashe is where we want to go. We've seen what the comp is. It pairs up pretty well with the Sejuani and the Braum as well. Lots of single target CC. That could prove pretty difficult here because I'm looking at WE and no one here can tank up the CC very happily this game.
Yeah, and of course TT, you know, they have the 3 Freljord buff. They'll be unlocking that as well. You get that Glacial
Set
Storm.
1 back again.
Yeah, well, no, it was, I can't remember what set it was, but you got like 3 or 4 of them. You had like the Glacial Storm come across like the entire pitch, and it was a mess. Like they have just a very blue team. Blue Cal is the only person.
Blue Cal, he's got the hair.
So yeah, we have UCal gets a pass because he has blue hair.
Yeah.
It is an entire blue team from TT, which is completely strange considering they are on the red side, but all the same, they have a really good first pick combo with that Ashe. Now, I do like that Ashe. Really, really good at kind of flying forwards.
Oh, do you?
Only problem is... Shut up, Sam. The only problem is Rakan can build that first item Mikhail's as well. So you're going to get double exhaust coming through. You can get like Mikhail's first item coming through from that Rakan as well. So TT, I don't think this is a slam dunk draft. I think that W have plenty of options if they can slow the game down to the point where they get that Mikhail's.
And they have got themselves a lot of very obnoxious zone control themselves with gold cards and the Rakan and then Ezreal and Corki being able to play from a long way back themselves. We'll eventually hit a point with a couple items on all of those members where everybody can be a carry, everybody can be a threat. Sorry, Mark, you don't quite count, but 4 members out of 5 isn't bad. Should be, on paper, a pretty close matchup between these two teams. 2 very different styles of team comps, 2 different ways of playing the game, don't get me wrong. The matchups, the expectations perhaps at this point of the year, looking pretty even. Onto the Rift we go, and we'll see exactly how Game 1 truly plays out. Gyos come ringing out and across. WE slightly louder, but of course they're the slightly older team. Thunder Talk here, newer to the LPL in general, and trying to introduce us all to some of those newer players. Feather and 1xN in particular, pretty new to the scene. Beishwan not exactly a veteran either.
I know, Beitran's been around for a little while at this point, but yeah, it is that this comes around to the really interesting conversation about LPL, where it's like, man, I feel like this player hasn't been. I think, you know what? I feel like Munch said this on cast the other day. It's like, yeah, Beitran, I don't feel like he's like that new. He's had like 200 games in the LPL already, by the way.
Yeah,
he's
that's
had like
mental. It's just how many games you play in.
I feel like this came up on cast recently. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, 200 games, and Munch was like, hang on, what? What do you mean he's been here that long? Sometimes it's just these players can sneak up on you like that because we play so many games here.
Yeah, it definitely gets that way. And on the other hand, you know, like you're looking at someone like 1xN, he's been here for a year and a bit. At this point, he'll have played something like 100 games himself, frankly. It's only been just over a year. How quickly you get those games into the LPL is one of the most intensive parts of the league, honestly.
Whereas for Yangxian, this guy has been, Yan Xiang. It should be Xiang. Look, okay, so I need to really brush up my pronunciation up on. So when it's not the IAN, it's N instead of An, which is a little bit of a different pronunciation.
Okay.
I know I'm going to be butchering it all the same, but I like to make an effort. Believe it's Yang Xiang. I believe, but you know what? We'll keep checking that over time. But he is a genuine rookie.
Worth noting as well, UCal doing the strategy we've seen a little bit from Lucians who are on the barrier mid, which is use it level 1 to ensure you get control of the lane and make sure the Corki is stuck under tower. It's not a mispress, it's a deliberate choice early on.
Yeah, for sure. We've seen this from UCal on the Zeri, we've seen this from the Lucian as well. You jump forward, you take a good trade, and it allows you to get that first push uncontested. There's no way you lose that level 1 at that point. And then it also means that you get like really powerful ability to kind of like play out your team fights. Funnily enough, we talk about veterancy in multiple games in the LPL. Abel, who has been playing in he started as a sub in 2018, 300 games in the LPL. So this guy racking up big numbers as well. I've got very fond memories of him when he was, one of those GDS 80 carries. I believe it was Abel,
Jackie.
I think it was Jack 11. I think it was iBoy as well.
Yeah, that era.
Yeah, it was just the players who kind of came in just after Uzi, really, that kind of era. But you know, he was subbing in and out in 2018 behind Uzi, and then he's finally kind of he found his own starting position. I think he was a big part of that fan favorite roster of OMG.
Certainly was. Beishwan and Yanxiang about to run into each other. The vision plant will spot out Yanxiang coming on as UCal now, knowing that the Zyra is around, will be a little bit wary of walking around. Mark on the other side as well. It is a Full collapse from WE. Braum will be wandering up the river. The river? I managed to get feather and river combined into a weird pronunciation of weather somehow. But here we are.
I thought you were talking about the German shop Rewe, which is it's a supermarket,
yeah.
which we occasionally go to shop at. It's like, are you thinking about going
Food,
shopping?
Yeah, I had breakfast this morning. What can I say? I'm hungry.
Anyway, so early game, I mean, there's a Zyra who's just kind of hard clearing. The Sejuani doing somewhat the same. Getting feather on the roam. Worth noting that TT don't have the best ability to start fights until that level 6, but then, of course, after that point, things get really, really nasty. Have to see if bot lane gets prior for TT and Feather gets out onto the map and suddenly you have 1xN firing arrows out from Fog of War, Feather's following up. The Ashe Braum combo is utterly disgusting. We've seen Top Esports play to it a lot, but a lot of teams have played towards this too. It allows the Braum to play his preferred role without having to go overextend and overreach for hard engages, because the Ashe does that for him with the arrow.
Worth noting as well, Mark's actually gone for the Ignite this game, not the Exhaust. We haven't got a double Exhaust. It's Wayward alone who's got the Exhaust. Understandable for the lane as well, but worth noting it isn't going to be that double Exhaust that you were perhaps musing about in draft.
I am surprised and a little disappointed at that. I just feel like if you go double exhaust, how the hell does Kennen play the game? So I think maybe that's a mistake from Mark. They have got themselves, you know, even in lane. Typically, Ignite is a laning phase summoner spell. It can help you in mid game too, but yeah, all the same. I feel like when you see the Twisted Fate into the Kennen, one of the reasons you pick it is because it is a free exhaust option. Because TF doesn't need the teleport; it frees you up to take an exhaust.
Worth noting as well, Fofar has the teleport. Yuko with the barrier doesn't, so. Was using that particularly for the lane priority and has largely found that now that trying to get a hold of that reset can be that touch trickier without that additional summoning tool.
It doesn't give you that that global, but what it does mean is it changes the way you play out side lanes later, and this is so much TT have struggled with. Their side lane understanding hasn't been awesome. But what this means is that the way you change playing around side lanes is that you just play towards UCal on strong side with the barrier, because you can teleport the other side of the map towards the Lucian if you want, and then it means you can just play for really heavy 1v1s with the barrier instead. Much like in the past, you used to see Ignite kind of plays like that. Could potentially see a double tap going forwards.
Grand entrance flashed away from UCal, but stays alive, but that will still be the summoner down there looking for that double tap. The Lucian a little bit overeager there to get damage down.
Yeah, you can see that UCal blowing that flash, that's not going to be particularly helpful when you have Wayward now with his ultimate, potentially looking to gun him down with a gold card. He might just be able to back off from top lane. He can potentially pull that teleport right now. He's walking to river.
Feather gets chunked pretty heavily there by the Zyra gold card from Wayward. Is spotted out over the wall. Then goes Beige One, gets the Glacial Prison down, and actually that's not going to be dangerous. The Fogo has to flash out himself. In danger. Grand entrance, buys some time. Flash on forwards to get the root of the Yanxiang as the Culling comes on through. Mark nearly dead, flashing away. A piercing light, not quite enough. Everyone from WE survives on about 10% HP, if that.
So many flashes used. 1xN is the one person who hasn't blown flash on Thunder Talk because he wasn't even there. The rest of the team, they don't get themselves the kill, but they will be able to get themselves the grubs off the back of this. The fact they don't get any gold from it is a little bit annoying, though.
Yeah.
It's quite sad. They would have liked to be snowballing beyond this point. They will be getting those grubs, though, and they'll be able to potentially push in a wave into this mid lane before it's collected. I don't think that's quite going to be the case, though. So WE, they walk away a sigh of relief, I would imagine.
Yeah, costs them just a little bit there, and it does, in fairness, make it a little bit more of an interesting game in terms of ganks from this point. Zyra off the reset, did debate heading towards Dragon, but just throws down a ward and a ping down there, and will continue on the clearing ways that Zyras do like to do in this game.
Yeah, so, WE, they lose themselves a lot of summoners too. It's worth noting 4 flashes on the side of TT, which we've already highlighted, but a lot of summoners down on WE as well, 3 flashes, and that will be very important to see now whether TT can capitalize on that. At the same time, we have seen the Lucian Braum. I mean, Lucian Braum was huge on Braum's release because you can double tap up that Braum passive so quickly. Almost became the winning factor in that last play. WE, now without flashes to disengage, they need to be very, very careful of that. With double AD carries and the Sejuani Braum, if you get caught out of position, you are getting locked down for a million years. You need to see whether that Mikhail's is going to come through from Mark at any point. I think that's such an important point to shrug off potentially a Braum stun or, more importantly, the arrow later.
Noting, of course, that generally speaking will be second item because Warmog's become so ubiquitous on things like the Rakan that that we have started to see things like Mikhail's fall away a little bit.
So this is, when you see the Ash Braum, it is still meant to be the Mikhail's first item. That's why I said.
Yeah.
Now, typically the Warmogs has been very important. If this is the first item Warmogs from Mark, I am saying it is a mistake.
To put it down in very plain writing, please buy Mikhail's first. I know you're the only one. Like Rakan in some ways, inverted commas, is the front line in this game, and the Warmogs would be nice there, but you're right. I think if you don't have a way to mitigate those stuns, it could get very tricky for a number of the members.
Yeah, because it's all well and good shrugging off poke and having a good amount of HP, because Warmogs gives you just a lot of stats. The wood moving speed's nice too, but there's the arrow. Imagine if you had a Mikhail's for this. Could be very dangerous.
Ooh, my days. Valkyrie required. Fofo, quick enough on the draw there. I appreciate the look in from 1xN, especially considering there's going to be a couple minutes before an objective fight might be required. Top side we look instead, though. Wayward in danger, gold cards, and sidestep some of the damage. Wayward about to get potentially chunked out a bit further. The turnaround is pretty big. Out comes the exhaust. Hoyer in danger. Remember, has no flash. Stranglethorns come on through. First blood goes towards the TF. Marcus roamed on up. Yanchang saved by a grand entrance. And TT fumble the play topside.
Oh my word, missing that ultimate costs TT so much. The knockup from the Zyra plant as well also means that Baytron can't get his E passive procced in time. He throws out the stun, but he doesn't proc it for the extra damage, so they can't even get a single turnaround. WE now with 2 kills and giving Wayward an advantage, who is typically very, very good at playing through those lane advantages. It's about worst case scenario. He has himself tier 2 boots already, gets himself that gold card, gets himself the sidestep, dodges out on that ultimate. Baytron misses the W2. It's a nightmare start for Baytron, going back into the mid lane.
Speaking of nightmares, now Wayward gets to take that lead elsewhere. Baytron is here though, turns it potentially around, but again, is just too late, and that is a problem.
Huge problem, because Wayward just got kills in his lane, and now he's getting kills outside of his lane too. What did we just say about Wayward? Very good at taking a lead and spreading it across the map and making it a genuine win condition. For all, I thought that TT had the better of the early skirmish around those grubs, using the Sejuani Braum. They've now missed their first arrow, they've ended up missing their first Sejuani ultimate, and they've let this TF get ahead. That is disaster for Thunder Talk.
Yeah, the gank didn't work out there, doesn't work out kind of in the mid lane either, and it's now in a difficult position where you are down that amount of gold. You're struggling in a number of lanes. You can see the 500 gold leads in jungle, in mid, significantly larger in top lane, and that could prove problematic if you start to have the map fall apart against you and the picks start to come on through.
Yeah, so TT, they need to be really, really careful to now try and contain the map where, contain the TF where at all possible. They tried to with that gank top lane, they have failed. Grubs are now spawning. If they can get towards that, maybe they can play towards some side lane pressure. It's a little hard to do that though, and again, the TF is there to force in side lanes.
Plate number 2 claimed down there. Yanxiang here for another lane. Gang to gang we did see work out so well. Hoyer, lightning rush away, but flash into the E means Hoyer's got nowhere to go. Cannot rocket belt out of the Stranglethorns. And Wayward gets another while the grubs were being considered by TT. Going to be a lot harder to do now.
The rookie jungler is having huge impact on this early game. The first 2 Stranglethorns of the game, and also showcasing what are the changes that came through to Zyra. You can E flash coming through. They might need to try and survive here, though. They don't have that ultimate anymore.
Flash on in for the quickness, gets onto the Braum, but the turnaround is pretty big. Flash E to get some turnaround and buy some arrow. Coming down from downtown as well as Yanchang goes down. A 1-for-1 right now. Teleports flying on in. Base one could use a step on forward. Culling is dangerous. WE in a dangerous position themselves, not quite dead to the double tap from Yukal, who just cannot find lethal damage this game.
TT are so close to turning it around in a big fight, but they only take 1 kill out of that. That is disaster for TT. Again, Hoyer potentially looking to see if he could stop a recall coming in from Wayward and force a kill. TT lose themselves that top lane, and that Twisted Fate has really wrecked the map. The fact that they didn't get a shutdown onto Wayward as well is very, very painful. Yes, TT ended up getting some plates for 1xN in the bot side throughout the larger extension of this play, but TT haven't brought 1xN to the fight to be that extra difference in damage. It really has just felt like TT failed around that top side, and now this Twisted Fate is everyone's problem.
And the 2 grub fights just haven't quite gone TT's way.
I mean, Baytron hits the ult. It's a good angle. He manages to get onto 2 squishies on that backline. He manages to proc the ult passive as well. But you immediately lose one here. The arrow's not there at the start of the fight. If it was, maybe it saves you. It's quite hard to tell. And then it's just really hard to get that follow-up damage. They don't have a Leona or a Nautilus to really, really hammer someone down. The Braum can be really good with these auto-attackers, but they haven't landed that passive well enough.
No, and that's proven a bit difficult there. The arrow at least meant that Fofo didn't get to pop everyone. It was about a, 3-second stun at that point. You hit kind of obviously the stun scales with distance, and from down in bot lane all the way to top river, it's going to be a very long duration stun. Still a lot of something is blown by hopefully everyone again, but over towards the dragon they go. Grubs were somewhat taken by the Zyra picking up one, but it's still going to be the dragon stacking stopped by TT. Still a couple grubs that would have been available to take, but it's 10 seconds till they spawn, and I think they'll have despawned by this point anyway.
We are now getting towards that point where TF, with the one item, gets close towards that fire cannon. That is a problem. Wayward has the most gold in the game. Also worth noting that when TF is ahead of the game, he tends to snowball that lead harder because he can force plays, and the more farm he gets because he's ahead in the lane, it activates his passive more. So he just starts printing money.
Stack deck stuff.
And you can see that, look, WE, so this is a great time to talk about something in regards to the way that their roster changes have worked out. They brought in Abel, which for me was against what their style necessarily wanted, because Abel wasn't the person who played weak side in bot lane that well. He has done for this team, and that's been really important, because one, I think that, you know, Abel was the kind of guy who would flip every game with PP God on OMG, and it was fun, but it definitely lost them some games. If we saw that version of Abel, which played in that fan favorite OMG roster, just wait for the arrow. Gonna wait for that arrow
it lands!
again.
That's huge! Big stun! Doesn't get it. Finally get the exhaust does come on through just about in time. The turnaround can still be pretty huge here. The gold guard comes on down. Wayward trying to throw as much damage as he can before he's in danger. Another stun will shortly be available for Hoya if he can get it in here. Beitron looking to see whether we get in, but he is too late, and the Glacial Prison will not be able to come on through despite an arrow all the way from the other side of the map landing.
That exhaust coming in, really important. And of course the Merc Treads as well, shrugging off the CC. So, WE, they survive in that top side, and once again, TT Go are looking for the Twisted Fate, and they can't quite find it. And you know, this is, again, continuing that conversation from earlier. TF's going to come back towards top side.
Gets Glacial Prisoned afterwards. Wayward coming on in with that Destiny Gate could prove a little bit scary, but the Glacial Prison will buy time. Teleport from Fofo was certainly there, and Wayward back on the map. Low, having taken a chunk on his entrance to the lane, will still be here, and I think that might secure them the tower as well.
I think it will do at this point, even with the one grub. These 280 carries are going to be very, very happy to go towards that.
Yeah, there is a roam up from bot lane, actually. Might stop that from being a potential risk. So there is a flex up from Thunder Talk in terms of rotating UCal alongside Mark here. Also, Feather to get towards this tower defense.
TT, so, this is the one time they stopped kills going over, at least. We haven't had kills since that, the second grub fight came through, so at least it hasn't gotten worse in that regard. The problem is, again, you haven't shut down Wayward all the same. He ends up using that ultimate to go back towards top side, but you know, the fact that Hoya and Beitron both use their ultimates and they can't force the plays, that's quite important.
Worth noting that first turret did go the way of Thunder Talk. 1XN, who's not really been on screen, it's just the arrows flying to the opposite side of the map that we've really seen from him, has got that first turret in bot side. It's doing pretty well down there in that regard, so there is still that to write home about from Thunder Talk, even if they are still down a notable amount of gold. And I'm going to try and defend this top lane tier 1. I just don't know how easy that's going to be.
My problem is, regardless of overall gold, this matchup in topside has led to the point where the fire cannon is going to come online so quickly. And as soon as TF gets fire cannon, the game changes. It becomes, again, just like, it's not about outspacing the TF. He's almost always going to get a gold card at that point. It's just, can you survive the gold card being thrown at you? Can you counter engage? Can you force him backwards to play defensively? The game changes an awful lot. So TT, they would have liked that to take a little bit longer so they could get themselves onto their first kind of big items of the game. They've got themselves to one item. Is that going to be enough? Also, speaking of those big one items as well, I believe that Mark is also going towards a Mikhail's.
Oh, my days, forces a flash, actually. 1XN has been aiming them at Wayward over and over and over again. Doesn't save the tower, though. Wayward will be able to stick around for this, you would imagine. Can't quite clear the minions in time, and Wayward burns the summoner, but sticks around, holds his nerve, and gets that tier 1.
Another miss, another big miss from TT. It was a dodge, sure, but it's just another play which doesn't shut down Wayward. Gets rid of that flash, but doesn't stop him getting that turret.
Doesn't. Fofo is going to be trading up with Yukal. Both junglers are here. Barrier comes on down. Damage is pretty good. But over comes Feather and Mark as well. Can maybe look to turn this around. Glacial Prison comes on through. Lands onto Fofo. Yanqiang now in danger. Flashing out of top of the passive will land onto the Zyra. And we know what plants do in winter. They wither and they die as Hoya's teleport and a slicing maelstrom secure this kill.
Finally, TT secure themselves the kills in one of these fights. Is that going to unlock anything more for them? We do see that, you know, because Yanqiang is dead, they can't use the Herald anywhere else, can WE, to get across map. TT, they're going to get themselves this top lane turret. They get some gold back onto Hoya, importantly, which means that maybe he can contest the individual matchup against Wayward a little bit more, and it stops WE from determining the next phase of the play with the big Destiny Gate, which could have been available. Wayward was on a recall. He couldn't respond to that topside play. He can now, and he might just go on towards Hoya.
Yeah, Hoya's stuck around for a little while here. Gold card comes on through, can start to run on down the cannon, who doesn't really have any way out here. The Lightning Rush is solid into the Rocket Bell. Will still be on vision, though, so the gold card comes over the wall.
Fire Cannon comes up, Trubs. What do we say? When you get that Fire Cannon, the game changes irreversibly. So, Wayward gets himself one back there, and does mean that Wayward has used his ultimate towards that top side.
Yeah, it means he's not really going to be here to stop this dragon going on down, as 1xN throws out the Ranger's focus and will rapidly burn that particular neutral objective down. Herald summoned in mid lane by the side of WE, who want to try and force through this.
They will, and I think they will be able to. There's no real big engage on the other side. 1xN can look for the arrow.
Lands it onto Mark. Not the best target. Glacial Prison afterwards is onto Mark again, and it just CCs him for a bit. There's no real way to get to the backside as he goes on it. Takes a huge chunk of damage. Page 1 just about alive. 1xN being chugged out as the Stranglethorns came on down. Wayward gets a tier 1 topside all the while as well.
So WE end up breaking 2 turrets and opening up the map again. So TT, despite the fact that the last play onto Wayward worked out fairly, onto the top side at least, worked out fairly effectively, they can't really stop the second swing. WE, they have been a team which has been quite organized as a team, and when we've talked about all of the roster changes, 5 roster changes for WE, sometimes multiple in the same role, have come across in this team. They have this bot lane revolving door. What hasn't changed, though, are these solo laners from WE, and I think they do change. They are really a large part of how they play out the map. They try and play towards Fofo in side lanes. They play towards Wayward and individual mount advantage. They are playing towards Fofo in a side lane here. TT do call them, they managed to catch them out a little bit, managed to get that ultimate from out of Fog of War. Good extra follow-up CC from Feather as well. Braum is much better as follow-up CC than initial CC, and you can see exactly how important that is to shut down here on the top side.
Get themselves a couple kills, which is nice stuff. Still a tricky position to find themselves in with this. The unmatchable TF in the side lane, at least for now. Will take a little while before he becomes comes under threat. Of course, eventually TF sort of hits a point where it's like, well, I've got all my items and everyone else is catching up to me and they just have better items than me now. But for now, the TF at 2.5 is going to be an absolute menace.
Yeah, and on the side of TT, Arrow going bot side, it's going to miss. TT don't have a Mikhails, and I am very happy to announce the fact that Marcus cleared that as their first side, and we said he was building towards that earlier when one of those arrows went down towards Wayward around that bot side out of turret, but he has that completed, and now that suddenly means TT, their first pick CC target combo, can be quite hard to pull off.
Yeah, it can be, and if it goes wrong, then it could be quite difficult for them to get onto a valuable member. Of course, you can Mikhails one, but there is a fair amount of follow-up in terms of the Braum and the cannon afterwards. But you are going to have to work that little bit harder, find that little bit more clean of an engage, because it will be just that bit harder to ensure you lock someone down in a timely manner.
Yeah, in so many games where you do have the Ashe ult as your big go-forwards button, the Mikhails just kind of just stops you from doing that. It's really annoying. Now, sometimes you can force a second play when the Mikhails is down. Of course, Twisted Fate, ironically, very good at doing that because his gold card is very low cooldown. If you have to blow the Mikhails on that, you're in a bit of doo-doo beyond that point. So WE can jump forwards onto Abel. Haven't had to talk too much about him. Not gonna eat the Braum passive just yet. Gets out of that one safely.
Look for a bit of damage on forwards there. Don't find too much, but they are just contesting here for mid lane priority, having lost their tier 1 there after that dragon play. Dragon number 3 for TT, spawning in just under 2 minutes. Might well be our next port of call. Deathcat can be for the cannon, and Essence Reaver and Phantom Dancer in for the double AD carries respectively as well. So it feels like most people here are on parity, with the exception of a full Terminus for TS.
So I will say, TT have the damage to turn fights. They do have the damage. how do you land it now? You're losing in side lanes. TT, they're not really pushing up across the map that effectively. Hoya doesn't. He does manage to stop the back. I thought he would be able to stop that one in time. So if TT managed to find the right targets in the right place, they can win a fight. If that target is not Wayward, I think that we don't see this a lot out of Twisted Fate right now. We did, particularly earlier in the year when he was even more powerful in the AD variant. He will solo carry a fight. He is an AD carry at this point. He has 3 items, which is an item ahead of the other AD carries, of which there are 5 AD carries on the Rift, by the way. That's completely fair and balanced role. But he will be able to solo carry a fight.
Yeah, no, it does feel like AD champions right now proving very valuable in the game. I think you're absolutely correct. As Warmog's done for the Sejuani as well, able to frontline that a little bit more effectively now as Wayward comes along and steals Gromp away. Very rude to do that, you know? I say this as a jungler, and stop stealing my camps, guys.
Sam, you're a Kindred player. Isn't that hard of
absolutely true, yeah. I had a game yesterday, I got 12 marks and I had a frontline that just didn't know where to play the game. I lost the game.
Sounds like a skill issue.
I was very annoyed. I should have won that game.
And yet you didn't.
I didn't. It was very annoying.
Intriguing.
Oh.
We saw some really good Kindred play yesterday. Well, we've seen some excellent Kindred play recently, and we've seen some less good. We then also saw Tianzhen's Kindred as well, which was less good. Wayward doesn't want to walk up to Hoya, which is fair. He does have a death cap.
There's going to be a lot of damage if he puts the exhaust down. That's fine, but it's now not going to be on you, Cal, who can start to do this. Can they get out in time? No, they cannot. And they bring down the TF, who knew there was something going on, but still face checks regardless. Double summoners and the shutdown going over.
And his ult used in the same time. That's a huge amount of resources used by WE's top lane to try and escape that 1v2. The fact that WE didn't have a cross map available is the biggest part of this. If they could go towards that Baron and threaten the fact that, it would be a 4v3 with the Zyra starting up, that would be a different story. But the fact that W don't have that cross-map means that Wayward, it's kind of his players in vain right now.
And that will also be Dragon just spawning, and you've got no way to bring the person with all your gold to bear here. We'll start up the Dragon. We're going to bring over the Lucian and the Braum to ensure no Baron sneak shenanigans occur. That's pretty good news for Thunder Talk, who get themselves that important shutdown, get themselves towards Soul Point, a win condition potential for themselves. He needs to close the distance, more move speed after you. Well, sounds pretty good to me as 1xN trades onto Abel, who immediately cleanses, teleports behind onto 1xN, who could now be in danger himself. May well be forced to flash away here, looking for a wall to get over. Gets towards the bush, stays alive. Beishwan now coming on over as well.
Beitran to the rescue, had himself that ultimate, would have been fine disengage for 1xN, so gets himself double summoners out of Abel for just the one of his own. I think that's probably worth that for 1xN, given the fact that the backline access from W is not always the best, and that cleanses enough for the gold card. So Abel, falling behind there a little.
Takes a huge chunk, but doesn't quite go down. The Gleaming Quill heal comes through in time to keep himself topped up, and the wards start coming on down. Wave being shoved towards this tier 2, and WE on the resets looking to wrestle control back of the map.
Yeah, WE. So the negative of going towards the Mikhails is that you can't be the one regenning back up. Ult thrown out from Beitran just for kind of denying the tower push coming through. So TT will use that ultimate. But yeah, Mark doesn't have the the instant base button effectively of just having that the Warmogs to keep himself topped up.
Potentially be pretty problematic at that front, but right now you understand the value of the Mikhails. It just means that the way Rakans have been playing more recently isn't going to be quite as achievable, shall we say, for Mark this game.
Well, it doesn't mean, it means that you don't shrug off poke nearly as easily. So now Baron up and available, Soul Point over for TT. So TT doing quite well in terms of the objective game. Also got themselves those 3 grubs to just the 1 from W earlier, so it wasn't the full 6 taken overall. We talked about that a little bit before, but we're checking in now. Vision control started to come through from TT, and remember that they have themselves all of those tools available on Hoya. They have that flash, the teleport, and the ult, whereas Wayward doesn't have his exhaust on available yet. It was on cooldown from that bot side. I wonder whether TT could have looked for a hard force knowing that.
Yeah, decided against it, not quite having enough information. Hoya is on the flank now, but so is Wayward. Hoya with the flash.
Abel's made a mistake. Oh my god.
Beitran now being jumped. They've tried to turn it around themselves. Good angle from WE. They get onto the Sejuani, and it's going to be roast pork for breakfast.
But why didn't Hoya pull the trigger? Abel had no flash, no cleanse, and Hoya could have gone in with the ult. That feels like a massive mistake from the top laner of TT. Baron's not going to go down. Hoya's looking for the flank.
Okay. Here we can go, get over the wall. They need to get a gold card onto him now. Wayward in danger! Baron goes down into the backline of the Baron pit they go. They're all so low. They're in danger. 3 dead already. Fofo and Abel must escape. Double AD carries in danger as Feather and Hoya flash over the wall, making sure there are no contact. Abel, with a lot of HP and double buffs though, could still win this fight potentially for them. They're going to be allowed to reset.
Hoya uses the flash to try and chase down the last remaining members of WE, but they can't quite manage it. Hoya didn't pull the ultimate before. I was wondering if that was a mistake, but he gets huge value around the Baron, which saves the play. So credit to him on that cannon, making sure that 2 item with a death cap power spike comes through. Just before this, Abel had E'd forward, and we thought that maybe the AD carry could have been caught from the side of WE. He isn't punished for that one. They go straight over towards the Baron, but yeah, I think this is where WE maybe just forget that they don't have that exhaust available. Great teleport ward placed down earlier by Beitron. He's obviously dead for this play, but he still contributes by putting down that ward, and it ends up being basically a 5-man ultimate across the play, even if it is spread across the mobility there.
And they look for a bit more, but Hoya flashed over the wall, think I've got the HP bar, and then Abel says, no, you don't, we're getting out with at least 2.
Yeah, sadly, Yucal wasn't there to immediately follow up when the E was used by Abel. Could have turned around for a kill, but him and Feather ended up splitting 4,000 damage in that last team fight from that cannon. That's what happens when you don't have that exhaust. Mark not going for that second exhaust, maybe ruining that at this point.
Most potent Baron power play I've seen all day was plus 17 for a moment or two there. Back down to plus 40 as the minions start getting traded. Wayward doesn't have the Baron, but is still going to be on that split push angle. Hoya, without the teleport, looks like will be sent over to deal with that member.
So, WE still have themselves a couple of Baron buffs to corral the map where they can, and that'll help them in regards to that one. TT trying to try and wave clear. Remember, there is that Mikhail's. There is the exhaust back up now. TT, their last fight was good, but the tools are now there from WE.
Oh, my days. Splits the uprights there just a little bit. Yucal throws down the barrier, trying to clear out the minions best he can. Fofo down to about half HP, actually, as the damage starts coming on through.
Yeah, there was a tower shot, and then Yucal popping the barrier and just opening up with the broadside. So, Yucal, big damage. 3 items coming in from both Yucal and 1xN, important for them. They can play around that overshield. They can play around shrugging off some of that poke with the sustain as well. Dragon now up in 10 seconds. WE, they've pushed in top and mid, but they haven't been around this bot side to get positioning around this Dragon. TT might have just found themselves a free soul because WE chose to push top and mid.
Beitwan got caught out the last time. This time around, though, is holding on for the last available moment. Gets on in here. Wayward looking for the angle. Feather now spotting things out. Flash on to the cannon. Dragon Soul secured. Cannon down already, though, could prove problematic. Feather and the rest of Thunder Talk now trying to back away. Beitwan Arctic Assault to try to get safety as the volley slows prove problematic. Beitwan clearing out the wave here, kind of aware it might well be dead, and so he's trying to make the shove afterwards as problematic as possible.
He's got the cloud movement speed, but I don't think it's going to be enough. He's trying to run as fast as he can. Fly, this boar is trying to get some wings. Turns out pigs really can fly if you ask them to. Nicely enough, this one's flying straight towards the gray screen though. Wayward potentially was going to get all in by 1xN there, but he thinks better of it, not having that cleanse. And TT, they get themselves soul at the cost of 2.
And there's no Baron or anything to take here, and because Beitwan cleared out the wave, not very easy for them to get a wave in before respawns are here. Slows to prove pretty problematic as Wayward hit with the culling, and Chiang as well, taken pretty low after that one, but no one dead. Yucal just about okay. Worried he was going to be in danger there, but not going to be there as the Baron is also timed out, so it shouldn't be too much more on the minions to work with in terms of buffs.
You can see that Yucal pulling that ultimate. The Cloud Soul on Lucian is really potent because you can get all of your shots on target because of the increased movement speed. One of the most broken things with Lucian is that if he tags you with his W beforehand and then hits the ult onto you, he gets to keep gunning you down with shots, so we need to pay attention to that. What almost came to be relevant across that bot turret. Hoya, half HP, gets completely zoned out by Wayward. Not zoned out, just murdered. Yeah. That's a better word for it. You can see that just after this point, that the move speed immediately coming in helpful for that retreat. Beitwan gets himself a brief movement speed from throwing the ultimate across there.
Yeah, I understand Beitwan's decision making there. It's like, I'm out, I'm dead, so let me clear this wave while I'm here. That's real jungle mentality right there.
Back out onto the map. So 700 gold-ish from WE from the Baron power play. Not game-changing, basically. Nope. However, the items you're getting through might be. Wayward has a Zhonya's now. What that means is that he can end up going forwards for an aggressive gold card. If the turnaround comes through from Hoya, from Beitwan, can immediately just press that as a stasis keep, get himself into a more safe position in that team fight.
Kenano at 3 items. Yeah, getting increasingly hard to exhaust and make it be let me try that again. Even if you exhaust the cannon at this point, because of the 3 items he's got, he's still going to do a chunk. It just won't be a one-shot. It'll still be half your HP potentially as these items still keep coming on through. And then you're not exhausting the 3-item Lucian or the Ashe. It can still be a little bit scary to manage a cannon with just that much raw AP.
Yeah, but you do have also another... so you have Mikhail's to stop one of the stuns. You have Cleanse on Abel.
Yeah.
You have Bloodthirster on Abel, which means it's much easier for him to survive with the Overshield. You have double Zhonya's now from Wayward and from Yangtze as well. So they can both go into stasis. So I feel like Hoya going into the exhaust and all of his extra tools just makes the cannon so much harder to play. Already down 3,000 gold. He does have the items to do damage. This is mainly a comment on Wayward being so very, very strong in his own right. Yeah. But I feel like this cannon is going to really struggle.
Abel hops away, but now Abel in danger, forced to flash on out here as the culling came on through. Means he's not really in position to defend this wave coming on through mid lane, but they'll back away, having gotten the summoner off the Ezreal.
The Asheras haven't quite managed to have the impact which TT would have liked them to have. Of course, again, that Mikhail's makes it much harder to do so. Way was spotted on that ward, so he's going to be spotted heading towards this side lane. Wouldn't surprise me if TT tried some funny business around there too, if they know where the rest of the team is.
Yeah, credit over to WE for that as well, because it's not like the arrows have been off target, if you know what I mean, but it's been good summoner usage, good dodges, frankly, to keep the arrows from being as potentially impactful as they could have been.
So, TT, they see the Barons available, Elder's coming up in 2 minutes. They have that Cloud Soul, it helps them move around the map quicker, especially when you combine up the Cloud Soul, and then also the Cloud Zones as well, they can be very powerful. Fofo might be able to combo up with Wayward's gold card immediately, though that's going to be the top, that's the tower going down. Wayward might have to leave Fofo, the double teleport.
Danger, he's dead, can't get the TP out, and that'll be Fofo going down, but it means everyone there could be problematic, but with the Cloud Rift zones, Baron is actually quite hard to start up before people get here in time.
Hoya just ends up teleporting towards mid as well. They want to keep forcing. There's no ultimate here now from the cannon, but maybe TT can force a fight again. They have that Cloud Soul, much easier for them to run forwards and find targets.
Yeah, and of course you've lost so much of your damage. Fofo has no TP and is dead for another 40 seconds. They can start a Baron with that man advantage and feel a lot happier about it.
TT have 0 ultimates, though, is the big problem. They have Yukal's ultimate, but no big engage. Because of that, it makes things a lot more difficult to win up even 5v4 beyond that point. So WE, they end up losing the TF ult, they end up losing the Corki teleport, and they end up losing a kill as well, but they don't lose the Baron, importantly.
Not quite yet. They do get the turret at least as well. It could have gone a lot worse than it did. TT, though, are the ones with vision control right now in the pit. WE going to try and contest that best they can afterwards, going in with the sweepers. It remains a very tense affair here in game 1.
So, TT, managing to deal with the TF a little better in side lanes. They did lose a tower for that as well, so I suppose WE, if the globals aren't punished, they come away with a better gold advantage because they get that inner turret. Side lane inner turrets are worth, what, about 700 a pop or so?
750, I believe.
750, something around that. So, Dragon now coming up in a minute. That should be very interesting now to see the priorities between Elder setup and then the Baron setup. One team that has the Zyra, much easier for them to rush either of those objectives. WE also have that TF ult coming up very, very quickly to potentially see whether they can force on one side or the other. Definitely have more tools, I feel like, especially if 1xn's arrows go wide. Even if they go wide, hit the target rather, you've got that Mikhail's. That's why that Mikhail's is so important. Mark hasn't stopped off for that Warmogs, and I think that's completely fine, given the value of that cleanse for the rest of his teammates.
Can see Infinity Edges completed for 1xn and Yukal. Alright, if the arrow misses, the regular auto attacks will do a lot of work at this point of the game. Arrow afterwards goes wide, was dodged away from. Yukal culling on the backline. Stranglethorn's disengaged. Wayward looking for the gold card, gets it onto Yukal. Golden now is Wayward! Fire! Slicing Maelstrom from the gods! Gets 2! And the rest of the team is immediately eviscerated! They are static shocked down as the Greek god of thunder, it feels like, is here to play. What an ultimate in from Hoya. What a flash.
How did WE fall apart that quickly? They let the cannon get into the backline. Wayward couldn't get his maximum value out of that fight, and Hoya wins the game for Thunder Talk. Wow, they ended up putting themselves a very topical champion up there to the top lane to seal out this win. It was back and forth. They let the TF get ahead, but they did not let him end the game. Nexus falling in favor of TT.
Huge moment there for Thunder Talk, who claim a fantastic team fight win. Wayward went forwards. He tried to get onto Yukal, and he meant he was out of position, not there to exhaust, and suddenly Hoya with the ult of all time. It was supposed to be a hard game for the Kennen. It was supposed to be getting tricky. He was supposed to be the player that was the weakest link on this team.
Okay, I'm going to throw this out there again. When we saw the TF locked in, what did we say the win condition was? You can get double exhaust from the Rakan and from that Twisted Fate. All of these team fights they lost were largely through the Kennen getting massive value. Massive value when the exhaust wasn't there. Folks, hello, welcome back. I'm Nymaera, also known as Alex. This is my brother, Initialise, also known as Sam. That's his name.
Yeah, so they tell me.
So they tell him. Folks, we are actually brothers. We do actually cast League of Legends and LPL 2. When there is no official English broadcast on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, we come and cast that instead. So we hope you're enjoying yourselves. I need to get myself a drink pretty desperately, actually. So what Sam did in terms of this tea is he made chili chai.
I did.
It's not great for soothing vocal cords. It's like pepper going down my throat. Why would you put this in there, Sam? What have you done?
I really like it. And I went,